Now, there's no way that we can do something and God's like, oh wow, I didn't see that coming. There's no way that that's ever gonna happen. What's up, geeks? Merry Christmas, guys. We made it. Hey guys, it's been a crazy year and we all have made it. We all stuck in there. I hope that you guys are hanging in there. I hope you guys are spending time with your family. And I hope that you're trying your best to spend time with God. You're getting to know God. I hope this channel is providing that type of content for you. And there are so many Christian channels out there that do the same thing that I do. So I hope that you guys are searching, you're seeking, and you're just looking for somebody to just fill you up so you guys can be closer to God. This Christmas, I want to do something special for you guys on this channel. I want to bring you more content, quality content of course, but at a little bit of faster pace. Mainly because it's Christmas time, and around this time a lot of people experience depression. It's one of the #1 topics looked up on Google around Christmas time, depression. So I really want to bring some content to you guys, but we can just have some chats, we can talk, and we can really just dive into what does God have to say about these topics like depression and anxiety and insecurity. I want to be going live on the channel sometimes, maybe doing some Bible studies. So if you guys see me live, feel free to jump in, say hello, ask a question. Sometimes my wife will be on there with me. My lovely bride will be hosting with me, and sometimes she won't be. But you guys are more than welcome to jump in there and let's get some Bible study cracking around the holidays. I hope you guys take care of yourselves, take care of one another, and do your best to draw close to God this season. 2021 is coming, and what do you want your year to look like? So you guys have a Merry Christmas. Stay up on this content, watch God, chase good news. And what do I always say, guys? Love yourselves, love one another, but most of all, love God. Peace. What's up, geeks? It's your guy Q here, aka JGTV. It's good to be back with you guys. And today we are going to be stepping back into a segment of conversations with a friend. I know, guys, it's been a minute, but today I want to talk to you guys about my friend Lois. And we were having an interesting conversation. But first, before we get into that, first and foremost, wear your mask, guys. I don't know where you're located at when you're watching this. I have a lot of overseas watchers, but I want to say this. If you are required to wear a mask, just wear a mask. Listen, guys, I hate it too. It is so annoying and I'm so over it. But you know what? Nothing lasts forever, guys. Let's just do what we got to do to keep it safe and keep it so that we can keep attending church, we can keep going out, and we don't have to be in quarantine. Some states are much more fortunate than others. Some of us are on a certain level of lockdown that really, really sucks, and some of us have a lot more leniency. So, hey, wear your mask, guys, and continue to be safe. Now, on to what we will be talking about today. We're going to call this all-loving, but not all-knowing, right? So, this is how the conversation went with Lois, right? It kind of started like this. Can God be all-knowing and we have free will at the same time? Well, this was kind of easy for me because I was like yes and yes, right? Because God is all-knowing and we do have free will. Now, a lot of people have this objection. I was actually watching this YouTube video with this gentleman who was putting up this argument and kind of saying, well, if God's all-knowing, then there's no way that we have free will because He knows what we're going to do anyway, which kind of rules that out. And it's not free will because He kind of knows what we would choose either way. Well, there's something else to that. You see, God gives us free will. And with Him giving us free will, He doesn't exactly just kind of jump ahead of us and say, I know you're going to do that tomorrow. Believe me, He's patient with us. Just like it says, God is not patient. God is not slow with some of us who count snowless. Rather, He's patient with us, wishing for all to come to repentance and none to perish. So God actually is being patient with us. It's not that He's jumping ahead of us and He's saying, I know what you're going to do next week. He's actually hoping that you don't do what you're going to do, and not hoping in a sense like He can't control it, but He gave you free will. And as a good father, He's not going to control you. So with that being said, I want to make another point for you guys. God's not going to override your choices, okay? So if you make a choice to do something terrible, God's not going to override it. Now, some people question that who also question God's sovereignty. I mean, if God knows someone's going to do something terrible, why wouldn't He stop the person? Well, once again, God gives us free will. Now, this doesn't mean that God is not all-knowing. Not at all. Because He knows exactly what's going to happen. He knows everything. But He does not jump ahead and say, you're going to do it. He prays that if you're going to make a bad decision, that you don't make the bad decision. And again, when we say that he hopes and he prays, we're not saying that he's hoping and he's praying like he's some feeble God who can't control the situation. No, he's a good father who's given his child free will. And in the big scope of things, you can do what you want to do, as horrible as it sounds. I remember distinctively someone asking me, and I said to them, hey, listen, if you want to make a plan, and by any means do I condone this, so don't go do this, but if someone made a plan to go do something terrible to a building or to a group of people, there would actually be nothing to stop this person. They can literally go home, sit down with a pad and paper and a pen and whatever they were going to come up with the plans with, and they can plan it all out, and there would be no one to stop them. And as long as they can make it to the destination of whatever horrible thing they want to do at that place, then they can carry it out. So when God gets blamed for these things, I really do have interesting conversations with people around the scope of free will, because people just don't get that we can literally do whatever we want to do. I mean, Paul said this, right? I can do whatever I want to do, but everything isn't beneficial, right? If that statement is true, that means that we can do things that will shock God, and that is simply not true. Now, there's no way that we can do something and God's like, oh wow, I didn't see that coming. There's no way that that's ever going to happen. So when Lois made this point of God's definitely an all-loving God, and he's definitely sovereign, but he's not all-knowing, I just thought to myself, that's interesting. And here was my case, right? So my submission, here we go, right? If God is not all-knowing, then he's not all-loving. Now, when I said this kind of just blew her away, right? Because she's like, what do you mean God's not all-loving? He's God. And it kind of worked the same way for me. What do you mean he's not all-knowing, right? He's God. But here's the thing. I've had people say things like this. Well, I've had some really, really bad things happen to me. Did God plan that? And I say, absolutely not. God didn't plan for something horrible to happen to you. Now, if something horrible happened to you, the intruder, the offender, the person that did it to you, I can assure you, and now you have lots of people who will argue me down with this, and I really, that's great, and we can sit down and have a conversation with it, but I can assure you that when someone is going to do something horrible, that there is a voice that tells them, do not do this. There is a voice that objects what they're going to do. Now, if they listen to that voice, that is up to them. And now here we go. Someone's saying, what are you saying? It's like the angel and the demon on one shoulder and the angel on the other. And in retrospect, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. There definitely is a war going on, and that's another sermon topic, but there's definitely a war going on there, and there's definitely God saying like, hey, don't do this. Like, I don't want you to do this. And there's definitely something else saying why you should do this, why you can do this, why you ought to do this. So we have to be careful when we're speaking about God's sovereignty and we're speaking about him being all-knowing but not all-loving, and we're totally dismissing the aspect of free will. And that's a conversation that I've had a lot around, the murder of George Floyd and the murder of a lot of young other black men and police officers, and just a lot of violence within this time itself in our country. A lot of people are asking the question, where is God? And I'm telling people God is here, but we are also here with our free will and us feeling like we have the right to do certain things, to not do certain things, to speak up about certain things, to not speak up about certain things. And this is where we are kind of falling short. So why do I say this? Why do I say that if God is not all-knowing, he's not all-loving? Well, it proves it in parts of the Bible where God was speaking to his people and he was asking them questions. When he was asking people these questions and he was making statements to these people, he wasn't making these statements in the sense that he didn't know what was going on. Case in point, Adam, right? Adam and Eve. The first time that they eat of the fruit and they realize that they're naked, they sew themselves some clothes together out of some trees and they hide when God starts to walk through the garden, right? And God says, Adam, where are you? Now, clearly God's not confused. It's not like he knew where Adam was at yesterday or even a couple of minutes ago, and now because Adam decided to hide behind a tree, God's like, oh, where's Adam? Like, that's not what's going on here. This is actually a question of self-examination. So God's really trying to figure out, where do you understand why you're hiding? Like, are you going to be honest with me? Are you going to be honest about yourself? Do you understand what just happened and what's going on here? Another case in point, Cain, right? When Cain goes to visit God, what does he say? Your face. Why does your face look so dejected, right? Why does your face look like that? It's not like God's confused as to why Cain looks angry or why he looks disgruntled, right? Because shortly after that, we see Cain say something like, God's asking him, where's your brother? And Cain's like, am I my brother's keeper, right? So God's really asking Cain a question of admittance. Like, are you going to just be honest about what you did? Are you going to be honest about the fact that you're mad that I didn't accept your offering, but I did accept your brother's, even though you know your offering was not a heart offering, you know, it was a self offering. So yeah, and the same thing in Jeremiah, where God declares something. Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 5, right? He says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And now this new is an intimate type of new. This is not just a new, like, you know, like, hey, like let's say for instance you have a friend and you haven't seen that friend in 6 months, and you guys are at a convenience store and they say, hey friend, what's up, you know, I'm running low on gas, do you have $5 I could borrow? And you're like, yeah, sure, it's great to see you. And then you don't see or hear from that friend for 6 months, and then you guys see each other again at pizza shop and they say, hey, you know, what's up friend? And you say, hey, what's going on friend? And they're like, hey, you know what, I really just had a bad set of circumstances happen to me, can I borrow $50? And you're like, you know what, you with your graceful self, you're like, sure friend, why not? And then you don't hear from them again for about a year. You're not going to really think that that's your friend, you know. And this new that God is talking about, when he's like, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, this is a more intimate new, you know. This is a new where we chilled together, we had a conversation together, like we knew each other, like we weren't $5 friends, like we was hanging out every day. So it's this kind of new. And this is where God is saying, like, he's not confused about anything. He's like, I know exactly what's going on, I know exactly who you are. And man, I thought this conversation with Lois was like so impactful. It actually lasted a long time. I'm definitely paraphrasing everything. It was probably a conversation of at least an hour or so, but it really was an eye-opener on both ends, because I kind of got to see how she in retrospect views God. I mean, she literally told me, like, I definitely know for a fact that God is all knowing, all loving, but I know for a fact he's not all knowing. So she knows for a fact that he's all loving, but he's not all knowing. And to me, I was just like, wow, really? Like, that was actually, I can't lie, it was confusing for me, because I don't like that logic. It doesn't even work for me. But instead of me like condemning her in any way, we just sat there and we talked about it. And she literally asked me, you know, she said, she's like, with all the things that happen and all the things that go on, you really feel like God is all knowing? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I don't feel like that someone can do something and God's just gonna be up there and be like, oh man, Holy Spirit, did you see that? Like, I just don't feel like that's how it works, you know. So again, guys, conversations with a friend, I miss doing it. We're gonna get back into these along with some other off sermon series until we jump back into a series. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Stay tuned for some more. You guys let me know of what you want me to touch on, any type of conversations you want me to talk about if I've had, or any specific topics you guys want me to talk about. What I always say, guys, love yourselves, love one another, but most of all, love God. Peace, geeks.